This is what it is, okay? I said empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
Welcome to the 42nd episode of the Deployment Dojo. This is a live show to introduce and discuss software installation topics using the WiX Toolset. Today, your host Rob Mensching will be joined by his very good friend and student of deployment, David Edson, where they will answer the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything using setup. Take it away, Rob.
Thank you, Bradley. All right, we're here. We're back. Had a last-minute change in the topic and a little bit of excitement getting you guys all started for the show today. David, how you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good.
You like our new intro?
Yeah, good intro.
It was good times. All right. We are going to not talk about what I thought we were going to talk about. We're going to talk about something that's actually more relevant to that which we were talking about last week, which is some advanced refactoring features that I didn't touch on last time, and then I blanked in getting prepared for this show, and then I realized this morning we need to talk about these. So we're going to talk about continue our path down refactoring, which I know you went and watched, right, David?
Absolutely. It was all about secure properties, right?
Where's Zach when you need him? Lost Priest and Bert are here. Welcome, gentlemen, and everybody else that's in. Martin, good. So we're going to go dig into this new feature in WiX for advanced... Oh, thank you. Thanks for the labor. Advanced features for. Yeah, I got the echo. I think, right? Is the sound better now? Hopefully that fixed it. All right. All right. Lost. All right. Are we doing? Okay. Where are we at? All right. All good now. And then, but I think David's lost me. All right. We got a slight technical difficulty. Let me fix this. All these things set up. I know exactly what's happening, but I gotta go sort it out. Audio, video. This is what happens when I hook up with change different people presenting. I bring Bob in, then I bring in David. All right, here we go. Good. David, you back?
Yep. Sorry about that.
All right, there we go. All right, all good now. Okay, so we're gonna pick up on a new WiX 4 feature that is going to help you in really advanced refactoring type situations. I'm not sure if this is a topic that's generally useful to all of you building installations, but I want you to know about it because if you ever need it, it could be really powerful. It's something I'm just glad we got into WiX 4. All right, enough talking. Let's go jump into the code a little bit. All right, opening build test. Let's go ahead and get our repository open, please, Visual Studio. Let's take a second, and then we will pick up from here. Main, new branch for episode 42. All right, and we will go and edit our build goo here. Build command to episode 42. And I will grab the name here with this. All right, episode 42. Advanced refactoring with access modifiers. I'm not sure how many people have worked with these. Honestly, if you haven't done much refactoring like we did before, you probably haven't even thought about the identifiers. All right. So we got our code all nice and clean and organized. And we've been operating a lot on when we did this refactoring where it was just us kind of floating around in our code, cleaning things up. But I want you to think now, if we were to be making a platform and sharing it across lots of other developers. So if you're just a 1 or 2 person setup, you're probably not worried about this. But when you start getting to much larger organizations, you can start building layers of your functionality in your setup, and will maybe want to use some of these features to protect your code from other people using it incorrectly. Does that make sense?
All right. Yep.
All right. So I'm going to go use an example real quick. We're going to look in class 1. So class 1 is the very appropriate name for our code that goes off and gets all of our settings and also allows us to set our settings, right?
Right.
And C#. It's been a while since we looked at the C# code, but here it is. And you can see we have these access modifiers in the front of what is public in this class. This class is accessible. It has a get addition. It has a get customer. It has a path variable that is not accessible by people because it is private. Only this class can access it, right? I think I'm probably repeating everything. Standard object-oriented programming type functionality, right?
Right.
No surprise. And, I thought we had a private function. We don't. We have this public function, but we could then also have public functions in here, or private functions, sorry, not just the path here. But you can essentially hide functionality within this class to make only have certain things that you want people to call. In our case, we want them to be able to get the addition, get the customer, set the customer, and get where we are putting the count file path for our Windows service and our console app to talk to each other. All right. Big review there, right? No big surprises.
Right.
All right. You can do the same thing in WiX, believe it or not. You're like, wait, what? All right. So I was thinking, we haven't had a WiX library in a while. So what if we brought back a WiX library to try to wrap up our class library to make it more reusable, maybe across other packages? Like maybe we're going to start making this thing more reusable across our very small deployment Dojo company. All right.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to go in here. I'm going to add a new project. I'm going to add a WixLib project. Remember, WixLib projects allow us to take setup logic. Oh, I've already have one to reuse. That's great. WiX library. I call them WixLibs. WiX library project for Wix 4. And we will call this what? Class 1 library? No, we'll call it WixLib. I don't want to call it WixLib. I'll call it WixLib. All right, Class 1 WixLib. I don't have a great name for it. Probably should have a good name. All right. So what we want this class 1 WixLib to do is to take all the logic necessary for working with the class library and wrap it up in a reusable little chunk. Okay. Now, this guy's not languages, so I'm going to get rid of the localization file. And it turns out I already have all the class library components functionality inside inside this file. So I'm just going to grab this file and move it. Yes, I would like to move the file, please. There we go. I don't know why Visual Studio says that's going to take a long time. It's very quick. And we don't need this little temporary file that they give us as part of the template. Say, hey, put your code here. All right, so what do? We took the class library source code out of our package project, and we threw it into our class library. So if I go ahead and build the built test package, we would not expect this to work, right?
Right.
We removed code from the project, and we brought the code over to the class library. So let's go ahead and add a reference. Add a reference from our package to our class library. Hit OK. And then when we build again, that's going to build our class library. Well, it's going to build our class library, which, as you can see, that project has a failure. And then it's going to try to tell us that, hey, we still can't find this. All right, because our class library failed. Why did our class library fail? Because it now depends on the class library project. So I need to hook up all my project references correctly. Class library project. There. And because I moved it, I think I don't want to add, but I want to remove. That's fine. Class library 1. There. I've added class 1, removed class library 2. So you can think of this as a tree now. This built test package has dependencies on class library 1, console 1, Windows Form app, and Windows service. All right?
Right.
And then by depending on class library 1 has a dependency on this project. Class WixLib has a dependency on class library 1, and therefore it will make sure these are all built. This is the power of MS Build. And if we take a quick look at our project here, we will see that we have our project reference class library 1 in here. Right? That's it. That's all it's managing for us. Cool?
All right, cool.
Cool. All right. Now if I build, I'm going to get something different. Go. Wait for it. Oh. 64-bit component does not contain Intel x64. Wait, where did these come from? Did my project configuration get mixed up? My build configuration got mixed up? Oh, look at that. We talked about, do you remember this problem, David? A long time ago, where
at the
when we
beginning.
add projects, for some reason, it picks up the wrong thing. So what just happened is that, for whatever reason, and we've been working on this at FireGiant for a while, trying to get this to behave correctly. And the root issue is that Visual Studio likes to push you towards 64-bit programming. So if you, by default, it just adds new projects at 64-bit. So what happened is we said our built test package is x86, and when we add our class library, by default, Visual Studio said, oh, you probably want to be 64-bit, and it makes your project 64-bit. Still trying to get something to hook in there. So what it's saying is, hey, you're going to have a 32-bit package depend on a 64-bit library. Obviously, the contents between those two things you would not expect to mix up together, and it creates all these kinds of messes. So there we go. Now I'm going to make them both x86. And then when I build again, hopefully this time we get a cleaner result. Man, that was a pain. That still trips me up every time. All right, here we go. Build succeeded. We have an output and everything is running. Multiple packages get resolved. Okay. Oh, I know what that is. That's me building on my own. That's a mix-up between local builds of WiX and me running a installed version of WiX. We're going to ignore those warnings for a while. All right, so what have we done? All we've done is we've refactored our code so that we took what used to be one file mixed in with our package, we pulled it out and into a separate WiX lib. All right, why don't we just go look at this in the folder tree so we can see the differences.
All right, yeah.
We'll open up an Explorer. All right, so here we are, built test package. Here's our class 1 WiX lib. This is a new project, did not exist. And if we look at our bin folder, we have x86 debug, everything. I want x86 debug. There's our WiX lib. All right, that contains our logic and our file, everything all squished into one thing that we could then send to anybody around that will then say, hey, you can use our class library and its setup logic, including all the remember property patterns and all that kind of stuff, all wrapped up inside this one WiX lib. Right? So it makes it much easier to grab this class library that needs all that extra installation logic, namely the remember patterns, and then the class library comments, which is not very complicated, but our registry values and all the work we do for the data folder and the permissions we set on the data folder. We get to put all that and wrap all that up with our class lib and send the setup logic with it. You see the value of that? Mm-hmm. Instead of having to send a document, like a gigantic, you could imagine like a big README that says, all right, when you want to use class library, here's all the setup things that you need to think about. No. You just send them a WiX lib and say, here, this you can use inside WiX and just hook it up anywhere that you want. All right?
Okay.
All right, cool. Yay, everything's great. Okay, now let's talk about access modifiers. So we have isolated our code into this WiX lib, which is great. Now, what if there were things in here that we don't want people to access from out the WiX lib? We want them to only use the WiX lib in a certain way, right? We only want them to say, hey, you can get the component group from this WiX lib and nothing else.
Okay.
We don't want you going in and messing with the remember and the remember customer and all those properties, right? Because that's internal implementation details. We don't want you futzing with those inside your WiX lib. Right? Like, because we wrote the WiX lib and we don't want third parties going, oh, I know there's this property called remember customer. Let me try to do something with it. Okay. What we don't want is someone to be able to come over here and say property ref ID equals, I forgot the name of it already, remember customer, and think that they can do something with that, right? We don't want them messing around with remember customer. All right.
Okay.
But right now they can. and this wasn't a big deal to us before. I'm gonna do another build just to make sure it builds correctly. I added this reference. I've reached now into that WiX lib and pulled another piece out. One place I pull out is the component group ref here with the class libraries. Right, my class library components, which brings everything in. And then I'm also able to reach in from my package and grab this property to reach straight down into this code, into this fragment down here, and then go find the remember customer pattern. And I don't want people to do that. I don't want them to be able to get in this because this is an internal implementation detail. They should not be reaching around and messing with these things.
Right.
Okay. So what I want is to break someone if they were to do this. Again, we hadn't talked about this. We couldn't motivate this before because, well, it was all in our package. We owned all this code. Why would somebody, why is it a problem if someone's referencing our code? At small scale, you won't feel this. But when you get bigger and bigger, things get interesting. For example, what happens if they pulled in remember customer, but not the class library components? Right? So now they've pulled in all our logic to remember and set this property and do all these things, but they didn't bring in the component group that actually sets up the registry keys that drives those things. This doesn't make any sense, right?
Right.
This behavior, being able to refer to this property and not refer to the component group, doesn't make any sense. But the other way around makes perfect sense. Being able to bring in the class libraries and then not know about this property. All right, have I motivated? Does it make sense why we want to do this?
Yeah.
All right. Sometimes I feel like I have to kind of go overboard a little bit when you're like, this project's so small, who cares? Yes, who cares? It's a small project. But when you get big and when you start distributing to third parties, you start thinking, how can I protect myself from them doing bad things to me?
Okay.
All right. So let's break this. We're gonna be the setup team of the class library for a little bit, and we want to prevent the other teams in our project from doing exactly this, from being able to get a hold of our properties internal.
Okay.
All right. You cannot do this in WiX 3. WiX 3 has no mechanism in it. But here's the drum roll. This is the whole point of every today. We have access modifiers in WiX 4. In WiX 4, you can say, hey, this property, actually any ID, I want you to say that this ID is not global. It is not globally available. I want you to narrow the scope of it. I'm going to modify the access to this property, to this ID, so that it's more narrow than everything in the world. Same thing as if I would say, hey, I want to change this get addition to be more narrow so it's only used inside this code inside my class library. Okay? So I want to make this private, right? Now we know that would break people. And in fact, it catches me pretty quick. Okay? So how do you do that? Well, just like you put an access modifier before your the name of your function, plus some other things that we have here that are C#isms, you can do the same thing. And we have a few access modifiers, and I hope I remember them all. We have fragment in front of it, I think. I'm doing all these off the top of my head. We have fragment, we have file, and we have library. And then I think the last one is global. If you do not specify an access modifier, the default is global. Now the default in C#, if you don't specify one, do you know what this default in C# is if you don't specify one?
Isn't it private?
It is private. Right, see how it gets gray here? That tells you it's private. They made it private, and honestly, private's probably a good answer. We made it global because WiX 3, everything was global, so the most backwards compatible change in WiX 4 is to make everything, if you give it an ID, to be global. Okay?
Right.
All right, so global is by default. In this case, let's say we can have two options. One, well, let's do fragment. Okay, if I remember the syntax correctly, and then I'm gonna build this class library, just a class library. I can build just this class library, and we build it, and it's gonna get going. Oh, and the build succeeded. That's not what I expected. Oh, I'm on the wrong one, aren't I?
That was the name of you. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted customer. I was talking about customer the whole time, and I was mom data field. All right, let's see if I get this right this time. This did not have succeeded. Live show, everybody. All right, I'm gonna have to go figure out why this worked. Now let me build the test package here and see if it fails now. Good. There, look. By putting in a tighter by saying this is only visible here, then the remember customer is inaccessible to its protection level. So it's out there, but you can no longer reference it. right? So we've been successful. We were able to prevent people from the outside from using our code. Now, library, I expect will give us the same answer. Yes. Remember, customer is inaccessible due to its protection. Oh, wait. Oh, fragment did work, I think. Yes, okay. Whew. All right, I wasn't looking at the error messages. All right, good. We're back on track. I thought I had a blip and I thought I found a bug in WiX, but I did not. Everything is working perfectly. I said fragment. Fragment is like private for identifier within a fragment. All right? So that means the scope of this ID is now within this fragment. And if I would have looked at the message, I would have seen that there are two errors to this. One, we can no longer reference it from the package. That makes sense. We said only within that fragment can we reference it.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
That makes sense. You're like, great. Wait, there's a second error. And if I would have read it, everything would have been perfect. There it is. It says, this is inaccessible due to its protection level. We are in a different fragment, right? This is in a fragment that has only the component group in it. And we create a property ref for remember customer. Remember I said I wanted to kind of take the property ref and put it in a separate fragment just to organize my code?
Oh, right.
Right? So by using fragment, I actually broke my own code. I said you can't even refer to this across fragments. Okay? So this property is private within just this fragment.
Gotcha.
Super private. And you might be like, why would you want to do that? I don't know. You have options, all right? Let's come back to why we might want to do that and let's fix it, all right? The next scope is file. So I want to say that this property is available within this WXS file. And if I build this, it should work, right?
Right.
This property ref will find it within this file, and then we'll do a build. All right, so let's do a build. And yay, the only failure now is in package.wxs.
Yeah, makes sense.
All right, that makes sense. But let's go ahead and add a new item, a WiX source file. And let's call this remember customer. There we go. And I'm going to take the fragment of all this customer stuff and break it out into over here. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to take all that remember customer goo and tie it into a separate file. But notice I still have my property ref up here. So if I refer to class libraries, I will still get my remember customer. But we do have file here.
So it shouldn't work.
So we expect this not to work.
Right.
We should get two failures again if it builds. Oh, the build succeeded. Why is the build succeeding? It's like it's not picking up this change to this file. Maybe I have to rebuild? I'm a little afraid of rebuild. Okay. All right, let's see. Did it pick up the two? Okay, this should not have worked. This is the part that I was like, wait, unless I didn't delete it. Did I not delete it? No, I deleted it. All right, this is where I may have a bug. Build. Nope, still only one. All right, so my expectation was that this should only been visible to this file and that we needed to use library, which would have made it visible to everything. All right, there we go. Library still works. Fragment. All right, I am gonna get a bug out of this somewhere, I think. All right, when we put it back to fragment, we get two failures again.
Right.
All right, failure here, and still can't get to it, access to it there. Class hybrid components, remember customer. All right, so I would automate this library. Do a build, and we're back down to our one customer failure. Now let's go do the same thing for our class library components for our data, remember data folder, and let's go ahead and make this library as well. All right.
All right.
Cool.
Cool.
This is a advanced feature that can be really helpful if you ever need it. I'm going to add another file. I'm going to pull this thing out just since we have space now. The nice thing about having a separate WiX lib is now we can also break these things out. Oop, I'm going to make that capital. Data folder, whatever. And we could break these out into separate fragments. So this file now, which was kind of big before, you know, the class library 1 was our biggest file in the past with all of our fragments in it, is now getting back down to more of a one-page kind of file.
Right.
And all that remember logic, especially for customer, which is as much, you know, with all the set properties, is now tucked away over here. And because I have this property as library, oh, I want to do the same thing. So now I go through and I can start turning off some of my my properties here, so you can't refer to customer either. All right. Cool. Making sense?
Yep. So far.
All right. Now the reason, now let's do a build. Hopefully we have one error. Yep, one error back again. Cool. So everything works except for we can no longer refer to remember customer. We also cannot, because I marked customer as library, we can't refer to it either. Customer is inaccessible due to its library. It tells you it's there. Yes, you were right. You did guess an ID, but you do not have access to it. And then you also cannot remember data folder.
Right.
Build. Remember data folder is not accessible. So what we've done now is made it so that out of our library, the only public identifier that we have is this ID here. Component group ID, that. All right?
Right.
Now, files, components, all these files, IDs, registry values, remove folder, everything in the WiX toolset, in MSI actually gets an ID. You can give an ID to a file, for example. File ID equals, what is this? Class library 1. You can give IDs to your files, to all things, if you need to then refer to them somewhere. If you don't give them an ID in WiX, WiX will generate one for you, and it will be private, right? So it'll be some made-up name that hopefully does not collide with any other IDs and is private, so you can't refer to it. So as soon as you want to be able to say, hey, I want to refer to this file for some reason, and there are cases where you want, or this component, if you want to say, hey, I would like to access this component, this is the class library 1 component. If you want to be able to say, hey, I would like to create a component ref to that for some reason, then you can give it an ID, and suddenly now it's available globally. Or you could then turn around and scope it again back in here and hide it within just this if you needed the component. Okay?
Okay.
So if you don't specify an ID, then one gets created for you, and it's private by default, which means it cannot be accidentally referenced outside of your fragments.
All right.
All right. So very advanced feature. I'm curious in chat, now that you guys have been through this and I've belabored the point of this, I have two questions. One, does it make sense? So if it makes sense, go ahead, say yes. And then the second question then is, do any of you have a use case that you could see where this would be useful? All right, so Martin's like, yeah, this makes sense. But does anybody have a yes makes sense, yes use case, or yes makes sense, hopefully no use case? I expect a lot of people don't have a use case for this unless you build reusable components.
Right.
And
you said it wasn't in WiX 3, right? So this wasn't in
that too. It wasn't
okay.
in WiX 3, and it hasn't been highly publicized in WiX 4 as a feature. I'm curious if anybody has a use case that they'd be like, that's actually really nice. It would prevent X from being referenced in my code. For smaller teams, it's less of an issue because you're just like, I control the identifiers. I'm doing all the work. It really is the idea of when you're publishing to other people. We've done some things in WiX to organize things, to organize the code in WiX itself, to try to reduce the number of exposed identifiers a lot simply by removing them. Just removing the identifier is the big one. You get private by default and you get generated identifier, and you don't have to worry about it. People trying to reach in and grab this file out of the middle of this class library components without getting these very important reg keys that go with it, for example.
Right.
Right. Because this, if I do this, well, yeah, you can get into really strange behaviors. Like let's expose this. I'm just gonna show you where this falls down. All right. Okay. So I'm gonna change this class library 1 component, and then we're gonna come over here, and instead of referring to the group with all our reg keys, I'm just gonna get this one component. This is not something that we want to do here. All right, we don't want to expose. As the libraries, we should not have made this ID public. All right, it's public now because we put one on there, a no access modifier. It's now public. So when I build this test package, we're gonna get all these kind of things. Yeah, the WiX component group. Oh, WiX, it's not a component group, it's a component ref. Right. So I'm just gonna refer to one component, not the whole group. Build. And you see we're going to get all this found orphaned component. You can see the funky generated names that WiX gives them because they're private. You get all these orphaned components, which none of this makes any sense. What does that mean? Well, it means that you grabbed pieces of things in here, but you didn't hook them all up correctly. And that's because you grabbed something out of the middle of the component group instead of grabbing the component group itself. So this allows you to avoid that problem. There. Component class library 1 is no longer available. We put our group back, and we can put our class library components back. Cool. Yay! And everything builds and works. All right. Other questions? Things, thoughts, sparring, questions? Go. Anything out there for a chat? Things like that they want to chat about. This was, I figured, would be a nice contained episode that we could get through this, advanced feature. But I wanted to tack it on the end of refactor. I realize this is definitely a refactoring piece, and I want to put it at the end of the refactoring conversation.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to keep this, though, right? I think we can keep this code. Kind of like how much smaller this file is now that I put these out here. I kind of like that.
Yeah,
I like this. I'm going to keep it. Okay, so I'm going to start getting changes and see if anybody has any other questions. Let's see. What is our change to this? In a project reference, instead of class library 1 CS proj, we now refer to the class library 1 WiX proj. So we're going to refer to the WiX proj and make sure that we can build the whole thing. And then we removed class library 1 components.
Yep.
And then what's the change to package? There's no change to package. Must be a white space change somewhere.
Probably.
All right. Oh. All right. Now we're going to add our project. These are all new files, but they're not new. They're just smaller versions of the previous files. I think they asked for theoretical, more useful, an editor that is autocomplete for various symbols because WiX subs are fairly opaque without extra docs saying what's there. Yeah, I tend to agree with you there, Zach. I think it'll become more interesting as things progress. And then here's our change to our solution file that, hey, look, class library 1 wixlib is now available.
Mm-hmm.
And I do not know what changes. Is there a way of showing inline, ignore, trim? There it is. There it is. It added a white space. If I undo that, yes. There we go. Okay, yeah, great. Now package is out of our list, and there we go. So what we're going to do, extract class library components to wixlib and use access modifiers to prevent exposure of internal, let's keep going there, working or internal implementation details. There we go. That's what we're doing here. Right. All right. That's the end of that. And we will go ahead and push. Now, what's your deal? I thought I changed it. All right, fine. Close. Showing this file, it's edited. Oh, it's showing this file. There we go. It was edited. It hadn't saved it, so it's still showing up in my diff.
Ah, I see. Yep.
Yes. All right. We will now push. Yes, Zach. We have ideas like that. All right. We will bring up GitHub. And we will commit episode 42. Edit. Episode 42. Advanced refactoring with access modifiers. And 2 changes, our start with our build update, and then all this stuff for a solution file. There's our reference to our wixlib. We deleted a file, and then we added all those files back into our wixlib, and then there's our build. All right, cool. That's our change for the day.
Cool.
There we go. Successful day. I will bring what I thought would be this week's topic back for next week, I think, unless people ask me interesting questions. I always take questions, inputs, things. More and more people are jumping on this into the follow-up on the streams, watching the replays of the streams. What are they? I guess the stored streams. And people have been asking some questions, so I've been kind of thinking about how to incorporate a lot of those. And we will do that. But if not, I have a good topic for next week with how you can do more flexible finding of files and things like that. So we'll add a few more scenarios to our belt test, our dojo, and we'll go from there. So hopefully with access modifiers, we've answered all of your questions about life in the universe. And we'll be back in a week. Right, Dave?
Right.
Good. All right. Hope you guys have a wonderful week. Keep coding. You know I am.